California of the past.
I
I
am
am
California of the past.
I
I am
am
California of the past.
I'm not from California. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, but I've been living here for about 12 years, and actually my family is all from California. So I thought I would just take a few minutes and talk about what brought me here and why I've decided to make California my adoptive new home. My parents are not from Buffalo either. My mother is from the Bay Area. She's first generation American. She's from a large Finnish and Swedish family that settled in San Francisco. And she grew up in Menlo Park. And my father spent his high school years in Santa Maria, but he's actually from a small, tiny little town in the Ozark Mountains. And his family did the whole Grapes of Wrath thing back in the 40s and got in their jalopies and drove out to California and tried to strike it rich and didn't. So even though they're not from, long-standing California families, I always grew up thinking of California as home and as the place that I would eventually go back to. My poor, sweet parents, who were very nice and who were wonderful hippies in Berkeley in the 1960s, decided to move to Buffalo, New York in 1969 from Berkeley and went through a bit of culture shock when that happened. It was like landing on another planet. My father was offered a teaching job at the University of Buffalo, and they figured they'd move out there for a year or two and then eventually move back home to California. And a year or two turned into 30 years somewhere along the road. But the whole time I was growing up and the whole time my brother was growing up, they kept telling us we're not staying here, so don't get too used to it. Don't make yourself too much at home because then it's just going to be harder when you have to leave. And they always said it would be in a year. So when I was 4, we were going to go when I was 5. And when I was 9, we were going to go back when I was 10. When I was 17, we were going to, finish up school, and then we were going to go back then. But we never actually ended up going back. And I don't think that they were lying. I don't think they really had bad intentions. They both really wanted to go back to California. So that went on for about 25 years, and I eventually caught on. When I was 24, I woke up one day and said, you know what, we never went back home. We're still in Buffalo. How did this happen? And I started making plans to move out west. So I packed up my tiny little car and my maybe $150 and my 4 cats and my boyfriend, who's now my husband, who was brave enough to make the leap and come with me. And we drove across the country and we landed in Seattle. And we lived there for 3 years. And I knew within probably about 8 or 9 months from getting there that it wasn't really the right place for me. It was an adventure, but it wasn't where I wanted to live. So I started looking into California, and I thought, well, yeah, that's where I really want to go back to. I want to end up in California. So I started looking for jobs there and just looking for places we might like to live. And my husband, he was now my husband, was brave enough to come with me a second time. Said, all right, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're doing. So he actually found a job in Redlands, which is about 25, 30 miles east of Rancho Cucamonga. So we said, okay, we've never been there, but off we go. So we packed up the car a second time, packed up the cats, and headed on down to Redlands. And within a week, I guess, of getting there, I felt at home in a way that I had never felt in any of these other places that I lived. I would go out on the freeway, which I thought would be a terrifying experience, and I would know exactly where I was going, and I was just out there driving along and feeling like, wow, this isn't as hard as it sounds. So we just started putting down roots, and we bought a house and made it our new home. And I think that, something that always drew me back to California was something that I found when we got there, and that it helped me feel finally like I had found a home.